welcome to our sixth video of our driver training tutorial series. Today we're going to look at MoTeC data analysis and how specifically we can use that with our simulator. So in the previous video we looked at how we can extract and analyze data from the physical car. Today we're going to look at how we can extract this data from the simulator that the team has. So this is advantageous as many of the times you won't be able to actually go to the track and get data from the real life car. So to be able to easily extract this from the simulator is incredibly beneficial, and you can use this data to compare drivers or even to perhaps compare your virtual tracks with the real life track. So we'll jump in today a little bit how that's set up and how we can extract and use this data. So the program that we use to gather this data is something called ACTI, Assetto Corsa telemetry interface. This is basically just a mod that's been created by this person here to use on Assetto Corsa. So we can download this mod. They have a pretty comprehensive setup and usage guide. So I'll put a link in the description for this video and also in my report of how you can find this and set it up at home if you like. It should already be all set up and ready to go on the university simulator. So if we jump into a session, you'll see at the top right here we have our little ACTI tab, and this should automatically start recording data as soon as we start driving. We can also go into our documents in the ACTI folder and open our ACTI, and you can also click here, connect manually if you want to. You don't have to do that every time. And you can see here it has all our data for what track, what car, what profile we're on, and it's recording data there. So at the end of the session it'll manually save this data, and we'll be able to look at it afterwards in the MoTeC Pro software. We can also view live telemetry. I haven't found this live telemetry incredibly useful, so hopefully that opens up there. You can see it's in this kind of their own workspace that they've created, whoever's made the mod. Potentially you could link this to the MoTeC software and view it live in the MoTeC software. I spent quite a bit of time trying to get that to work, but it seemed to be quite buggy. So I just stuck with this for the moment. And obviously you'd want to have this on a different monitor when you're driving, because yeah, you can't see. So if I start driving, you can see there the traces are live updating as I drive. Alright, so I'll do a couple of laps, get some data, and we'll go and see how we can analyze that afterwards. Alright, so I've done a few laps there. Now we'll go see how we can access that data. So I'll just go cancel the session. And we'll head over to the MoTeC i2 Pro software. Because this isn't logging on a physical MoTeC device, we can log in the MoTeC Pro, unlike the device we have at the moment, which only logs in standard. So if we go here to open our log files, you'll just have to find wherever you have your ACTI device downloaded. And if I go into here, telemetry, you can see we have our telemetry data that we just gathered. If I open that, I can then see all the telemetry that I just gathered. So usually, I think this is one I've previously opened, but when you first open it, you'll have to establish the laps and the track just as you would with the real world data. So the interface in the MoTeC Pro is a little bit different. Overall, it is, I found, easier to understand. You know, if you want to add something, there's just a little add tab up here. You can add whatever you want. I feel like it's a lot easier to understand and easier to get your head around. So if we go to this little track, we would go generate track. and we don't have GPS coordinates because it's from the Assetto Corsa. You can try and use the car coordinates, but I found it's easy just to use your lateral G and speed. And the channels have different names for whatever they've named them in the ACTI software. So you can see here the amount of channels that are actually being logged is a lot more than we log on our physical car. So it's also interesting to analyze these different channels and see perhaps that some of them might be useful to implement on the real life car in the future. So we wanted the lateral G, so I think it's called DG acceleration lateral. So we would get that one, press OK, and you can see our track has been generated here. I'll click OK. I could, if I want, generate sections on our track. If I want to analyze a particular corner, we can break it up into sections like that. Right, so you can see the different sections up the top here that have been labeled. So we now have it broken into our different laps. We would set up, would have to previously set up them manually, but that's all done instantaneously. And we have our data that we can analyze however we might want to analyze it. Some of the interesting things that you can add, if we add a new worksheet there, that are just a bit nicer with this MoTeC Pro is if we click add here, we can add a rainbow track. This is something that I talked about in the previous video. We had to do it in a specific track report channel. In the Pro software, you can add it easily in a much nicer way. So we can track what channel we want to analyze. Speed, change our band. Obviously, I don't think we're going to be getting to 250 kilometers an hour, so I'll change the scale to maybe 130. Click OK, and you can see a much nicer track map than what we had previously. It's a lot easier to see and to analyze. We can also overlay maps a bit better. So if I want to overlay this one as well, you can see it comes up right next to each other. It's a lot nicer than trying to analyze it using the MoTeC standard software. So everything's exactly the same in here. We might want to analyze, for example, maybe if we get like a tire temperature, tire pressure, tire temperature, the front left, middle. So I'll get rid of these other ones. And I'll get rid of my overlay. So that's our entire run. We can see the front left tire temperature, which would heat up the most around this sort of clockwise circuit. You can see how Assetto Corsa's modeled that temperature and how it's actually increased throughout our run. So it's definitely interesting. You can look at a lot more aspects of data analysis with this virtual software because you don't obviously have to have the physical amount of sensors that you would in real life. For example, these, we have the middle, inner, and outer edge of each tire. You would probably need 3 sensors for each of those, or something similar to that. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting things you can analyze. That's all I'll go through today. Actually, just another quick thing. Get back up our speed channel. And then there's this variance channel up here. So that's something that's not as easily accessible in MoTeC standard as well. Right, so if we were to analyze 2 laps, you can see across to the lap over here. See how our variance changes through the lap as one lap loses relative to the other. At the moment, obviously, we have time on the x-axis, so we could change that as well. Everything's just a bit differently placed in here, so it is a bit hard to jump between the two and look at those different features. Alright, so that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next video where we have a look at optimum lap and how we can use the MoTeC GPS data to make that process a bit easier. Thanks.